Hi friends, welcome back. My name is Amanda. Today I want to talk to you about essentially taking control, taking it back and having control over what it is essentially that you're putting into your body. We all read and we've all seen media, we've all watched the news and seen the TikToks talking about all of the different chemicals that they put in our food, not only our food, but in like tampons and stuff. Have you guys seen that? Anyways, it's very, very concerning. And so I made a decision that I really just want to take control over what I am able to take control of. And one of the things that I can control in my life is what I put into my body. Not only the media that I watch, the things that I take in visually, but actually what I'm taking into my body, like what food I am eating. One of the things that I have found that has brought me immense joy is gardening. And I know that's kind of crazy. That's like a kind of like a grandma thing to do, but I absolutely love growing my own food. I want to take you on a quick little tour and show you the little tiny garden that I have going here in my backyard. And then I'm going to show you what to do once you have an abundance, a giant harvest of food. Like, what do you do with that? Okay, now this is my little garden. I have pots here which have rosemary, chives, not sure what this is. I usually keep the little tags in there. That's catnip. And then over here we have basil, sage, and parsley. So these are my containers that I keep my herbs in. Here's my first garden bed. I've got a tomato plant with some pretty good looking tomatoes. They're coming along. I have an eggplant plant, and I did get one eggplant off, and it's sitting in the house. My other tomatoes, you can see how bountiful this is going to be once those finally start turning red. I have a zucchini plant, which I have already taken off two pretty good sized zucchinis. And a friend of mine gave me some zucchinis as well. And if you want to, today we're going to be canning tomatoes, but if you want to like this video, leave a comment, and I'll try to make some zucchini bread as well in another video. And here's the other garden. Now this has some tomatoes in it, but you can see these leaves. Like, these look, they're not burnt up. Look at those tomatoes. They've got some spots on them. I'm not sure if it's the squirrels getting to them or what it is. Here's but see that black spot? Oh, that's just stuff that fell on it. But those are some green bell peppers. So back here again, we've just got peppers and we've got tomatoes. And that should make some good meals. Those are my Roma tomatoes. And this thing just fell over. I'm not sure if anything's gonna come off of this. Yeah, this plant is just burnt up. But you can see my peppers. Some more little tomatoes in there. Very nice. As you can see, I just have a very small little batch that I'm kind of working on. I think I have a total of 6 to 8 tomato plants, and I think there's about 4 pepper plants that are out there. 1 eggplant, 1 zucchini, and then all the herbs and stuff. My hope is to harvest the herbs, dry them out, and then use them, throughout the next year until next summer when I can regrow. And a lot of those were volunteer, like the chives and the rosemary and the catnip. Those just sprouted up on their own. They were left over from last year, so I didn't even have to purchase any more plants or any more seeds for that. Recently, one of my mom's friends was so wonderful, and she gifted us just boxes upon boxes of tomatoes that she had grown in her garden. Now, she planted her plants a little bit sooner than I did, so all of hers, came to harvest about a month before mine have. And one thing that I've learned too in gardening and kind of in the gardening area is that people are very curious. We like to try new things. We like to kind of determine, what is causing, you saw those plants back there were kind of burnt up. I had read about bottom rot. I had read that putting calcium into the soil. So at a couple times this year, I did place eggshells. I crushed them up real tiny and then I threw them in the soil with the plants in hopes that that would, you know, solve the problem. I'm not noticing any big black splotches on my tomatoes like I did in the years past, but I'm not quite sure that the soil is as healthy as I'd like it. But again, that's the fun thing about gardening is it's trial and error. You're learning things, you're trying new things. I find it a lot of fun. And also, I think it's really important to get your hands in the soil and be a part of the food that you're making, be a part of the food that you're taking into your body. So I want to bring you along, and I'm going to show you how we are going to process and can all of the tomatoes that my mom's good friend gifted us. So come along. All right, here we have the spread of all of the vegetables that my mom's friend so wonderfully shared with us. We have tomatoes and cucumbers and some peppers. And of course, our cookbook, which has how to preserve all different types of food. We have the tomatoes prepped and ready. They're peeled and cored. And then we're going to get our stock pot. We have a bunch of tools that we're going to use for canning today. We have some additional lids and flats, or bands and lids rather. We have pickling salt or canning salt. And then we have, of course, the tray that we're going to use in our pot and some funnels, some wide mouth funnels. All right, we're going to put the stock pot on the stove, turn it all the way up to high, and get that water really boiling. Always double check your recipe. Today we're going to be doing tomatoes packed in their own juices. So there's really nothing additional to add. We've got all of our jars sterilized and set aside. Now I'm going on a mission into my parents' basement. You'll notice those big gallon jugs there. Those at one point were filled up with water before Y2K, believe it or not. And if your parents' basement doesn't look like this, then I don't know what to tell you. This is a bunch of canning supplies from many years past. There are a lot of jars here that need to be thrown out, but I found some additional wide mouth mason lids, and those were 59 cents. The ones I found at the store recently were $9.99. Just some old things I found in my parents' basement. They have an abundance of empty mason jars, which will be wonderful to use. The mason jars and the rings are reusable. However, you do need to buy new flats, and I've even seen people reuse their flats, so I'm not really sure. But for us today, we are going to use all new flats. And I'm looking around for some additional rings. We had run out of the quartzite rings. Now we are boiling those flats that we found some downstairs. We're going to sterilize those and boil those and set them aside. And we're going to place our tray into our giant pot and let it rest as we pack up the tomatoes. All right, we've got our jars. We're starting to fill them. I'm going to show you the process here. We're just going to take the tomatoes and literally just shove them down into the jar. We don't need to worry about keeping them whole because they will be used for sauces or stews. And likely they will be blended up and used before we put them in the recipe. So just get as many in there as you can. Try to work out any air bubbles. We want just tomato juice, and minimal amount of air bubbles. Okay, we've got our water coming up to a boil. Notice my daughter's amazing camera skills.
Do you like them or?
All right, we're going to clean off the lids of the tomatoes before we place the flats on. And in 3 of these jars, I'm going to place a little bit of garlic and a little bit of basil. And I will label these appropriately, but these will be more suited for a tomato sauce or an Italian like pizza sauce, spaghetti sauce, something like that. So place a little bit of basil in each one of those jars with that garlic. Now we're going to start by placing the flats on with the rings, and we're just going to tighten those firmly with our hands. Doesn't need to be too firm. And then we're going to start by putting them into the pot here. Now, this would only take 6 of the quart size jars. So we were able to do 6 at a time here. And so we had to wait for the last 3, the garlic ones we waited on. We want to make sure that they are fully submerged in the water, covered by at least an inch of water over the top, and then we place the lid on, and we are going to let those sit for an hour and 25 minutes. Now, after that time has passed, we're going to remove the top, and again, we want that water rolling boil, as you see here. We're going to turn off the heat, and then we are going to lift them out of the water and let them cool for about 5 minutes before we actually remove them from this bath. Now, after 5 minutes have passed, we're going to use one of our tools here, and this is going to help remove the jars from the water. These jars are very, very hot. They've been sitting in that water boiling for an hour and a half, and you do not want to touch them with your bare hands. I prefer the tool even above using hot pads. And you can see the tomatoes have separated here, but you saw when we put them in, it was literally just tomatoes. So that liquid in there is all the juice that has kind of cooked out of the tomatoes. So we're going to set those aside, and then we'll move on and see what recipe we can make with this. Okay, so you can hear the locusts out. Here I have one of the jars of tomato that we made up. There is a lot of separation. There's kind of like a liquid water from within the tomato on the bottom, and then on top. Most important thing is that you want to make sure that after you did your canning that thing actually snapped down so that there is no, it's vacuum sealed essentially. So we're going to take this jar of tomatoes and we're going to make some chili with it. So join me. Okay, we've gathered all of our ingredients here. I'm going to place 2 pounds of ground beef into a large pot, and we're going to work on browning that up. I'm going to take an onion and dice it up and add it to the beef when it's about halfway through cooking. We are going to take all the fat out of the beef. There's quite a lot of fat, as you see here in that hamburger, and we're going to have a lot of liquid from the tomatoes, so we want to get all the fat out. Okay, we're going to take those tomatoes and open the jar, and we're going to blend it up really nice to a nice liquid, and dump that in the chili as well. Stir everything up, put the seasonings in, add the beans. All right, and then we're going to let that simmer for just a little while. Okay, we're dishing it out now. Let's take a taste. All right, guys, the chili is done. We're going to go ahead and try to taste test it. It's really good. Really happy. Thanks for watching. Bye.